And just because, I've actually got a fourth one. You know, when I see something about, the average American being left behind, so to speak, as Michael Snyder says on his economic collapse blog site, I read through it. I said, again, it just kind of shows us where we are as a society in this country. There's a whole lot of people who just are really at the bottom. And we just need to hear about that from time to time to let us all know this is real and it's in America and it's not supposed to be here. This is not the America we were taught about. This is not living the American dream for these people, so why the hell is this happening? But anyways, he's got this article, the tens of millions of forgotten Americans that the U.S. economy has left behind. The evidence that the middle class in America is dying continues to mount. As you will see below, nearly half the country would be unable to cover an unexpected $400 expense, which I just covered. As a matter of fact, he's using the same link in my last video, I think, or the one before that. And about 2/3 of the population lives paycheck to paycheck, at least part of the time. Of course, the economy has not been doing that well overall in recent years. Barack Obama was the only president in all of the U.S. history not to have a single year when the economy grew by at least 3%. And U.S. GDP growth during the first quarter of 2017 was a god-awful 0.7%. During the Obama era, it is true that wealthy enclaves in New York, Northern California, and Washington, D.C. did thrive, but meanwhile, most of the rest of the country has been left behind. Today, there are approximately 205 million working-age Americans, and close to half of them have no financial cushion whatsoever. In fact, the new survey conducted by the Federal Reserve has found that 44% of the Americans do not even have enough money to cover an unexpected $400 expense, which again I just covered. But just because he's covering some of what they talked about in the other article. Not only that, the same survey discovered that 23% of adults will not be able to pay their bills this month. But just because you can pay your bills does not mean that you are doing well. Tens of millions of Americans barely scrape by from paycheck to paycheck each and every month. In fact, a survey by a Career Builder discovered that 75% of all Americans live paycheck to paycheck at least some of the time. Now, that's an interesting statistic I haven't heard yet. At least some of the time, you're living paycheck to paycheck. That's not a good sign at all. 75%? Are you kidding me? It says 3/4 of Americans, 75%, are living paycheck to paycheck to make ends meet, according to a survey from Career Builder. 38% of employees said they sometimes live paycheck to paycheck. 15% said they usually do, and 23% said they always do. While making ends meet is a struggle for many post-recession, those with minimum wage jobs continue to be hit the hardest. Of workers who currently have a minimum wage job or have held one in the past, 66% said they couldn't make ends meet, and 50% said they had to work more than one job to make it work. So please don't be fooled into thinking that the U.S. economy is doing well because the stock market has been hitting new record highs. The stock market was soaring just before the financial crisis of 2008 too, and we remember just how that turned out. The truth is that the long-term trends that have been eating away at the foundations of the U.S. economy continue to accelerate, and the real economy is in substantially worse shape this year than it was for sure last year. Just about everywhere you look, businesses are struggling and stores are shutting down. Again, I'll say it again. Ford, 10% of their workforce, we got to cut them. That's 20,000 being cut out of 200,000. It's a big number. What about the retail store apocalypse I've been covering over the last 2 months? And I'm doing my little thing. Another one bites the dust, right? That was my little theme song for every time I have to come out here and do one of those videos. So yeah, just about everywhere you look, businesses are struggling and stores are shutting down. Yes, there are a few wealthy enclaves where everything seems wonderful for the moment, but for most of the country, it seems like the last recession never ended. In a desperate attempt to stay afloat, a lot of families have been turning to debt to make ends meet. U.S. household debt has just hit a brand new all-time record high of $12.7 trillion, but we are starting to see an alarming rise in auto loan defaults and consumer bankruptcies. This is precisely why we would what we would expect to see if the U.S. economy was moving into another major recession, which is what I keep saying. It's here. It's already here, but it's not being acknowledged. That's the key. News is not acknowledging it. Federal Reserve's not acknowledging it. The government's not acknowledging it. No, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. What about that 0.7 GDP? That's horrible. No, it's fine. Don't let it bother you. In fact, we are seeing all sorts of signs that point to a major economic slowdown right now. Just check the following from Wolf Richter's latest article, where he says, over the past 5 decades, each time commercial and industrial loan balances at U.S. banks shrank or stalled as companies cut back or as banks tightened their lending standards in reaction to the economy they found themselves in, a recession was either already in progress or would soon start. There has been no exception since the 1960s. Last time this happened was during the financial crisis of '08. Now it's happening again with a 1990 to 91 recession twist. Commercial and industrial loans outstanding fell to $2.095 trillion on May 10th, according to the Fed's Board of Governors weekly report on Friday. That's down 4.5% from the peak in November 2016. It's below the level of outstanding C&I loans on October 19th, and it marks the 30th week in a row of no growth in C&I loans. Again, this is thermometers telling you recession, recession, recession. At the very least, recession. The very worst, coming depression. Perhaps we will be fortunate enough, or not enough, but perhaps we'll be fortunate and break this pattern that has held up all the way back to the 1960s. But I wouldn't count on it. Here's what Zero Hedge had to say about this alarming contraction in commercial and industrial loans. Here's the bottom line. Unless there's a sharp rebound in loan growth in the next 3 to 6 months, whether due to greater demand or easier supply, this most accurate of leading economic indicators guarantees that a recession is now inevitable. We are way overdue for a recession. The hard economic numbers are screaming that one is coming, and the financial markets are absolutely primed for a major crash. As Americans, we tend to have such short memories. Every time a new financial bubble starts forming, a lot of people out there start behaving as if it can last indefinitely. Isn't that amazing? It's true. Again, how many times I got to talk about this stupid house flipping thing, Jerry? Pissing me off. Radio commercial. Hey, I'm so-and-so. Come join me now. Join my team now to learn how to flip houses and make a ton of money. You don't have any good credit? That's okay. We can get you to the right financer. You got good credit? You got good financing? We can, of course, work with you too. We want you to join our team. Listen, this might sound crazy to you, but there's actually somebody in the world that has morals. And that particular person at this point is me. I'm sure a bunch of you do too. But in other words, nobody has morals these days. Just freaking everywhere you look, nobody has morals. I have morals. There's not a chance in hell that you would ever find me if I was in the position. Listen, Jason, we got this thing we want to make you a partner on. You can even be the majority owner of this thing. We want you to push this out there. We're going to put it on the radio. We're going to sell these little CD kits to teach people how to flip houses and things like that. Go to a seminar. We're going to go about 5 or 6 seminars while we push this thing. It'll be on all the radio stations. What do you think about getting on board? You'll make a big amount of money on that. I would say, guys, we're all on the same page. We're at the all-time high of the market right now, right? We're all in agreement. Oh, of course, yeah, we know. Why do we want to do that? Because in that, all the people out there are going to compete with each other to flip houses in a market which is already too high. This doesn't seem like it's going to end well. Matter of fact, this is the same thing that happened in 2008, right before 2008, the technical crash right before that. Same things, commercials, flipping houses. Oh, we know. Yeah, we're well aware of that. This is the prime time to do it because everybody, again, a lot of people out there start behaving as if it can last indefinitely. And where there's sheep to be fleeced, we need to fleece them. We need to cull them. Time to cull the sheep. And we want to know if you want to, be in on this time. They're going to get fleeced one way or the other. Just something about that just doesn't sit right with me. I'm going to have to say no. Appreciate the offer, and I could probably be a multimillionaire joining you, but, we don't feel right about that. Not going to happen. But these people means nothing. business. The time is right. Just like the traders out there, and I'm talking about the big ones, the big companies that, brokers and hedge funds or whatever. Not necessarily brokers, but hedge funds and the big money. They know when the top's in, and then they flood out of it with a bunch of their short positions to kill off everybody else. Because why? A lot of people out there start behaving as if the bubble can last indefinitely. And the stock market, I got to get in. I got to finally get in. This is crazy. I'm missing out on all this action. I could have made 10% over the last several months. I can't believe I didn't get in on this. And then they get in on it, and wham, rug's pulled out from under them. Oh, sorry, you didn't see that coming, did you? Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't know. Oh, yeah, just unexpectedly. Federal Reserve said everything was fine just 2 weeks ago. Numbers were looking great. They were getting ready to do another rate hike, and unexpectedly this happened. This thing, oh my gosh. People fleece other people. It's like a way of life now. How can I stick my knife into this guy's back, and when I pull it out, dollars come out, okay, and extract as many dollars from this guy as I can? Well, instead of using a real sharp, super sharp knife, I'm going to get one that's sharp on one end, pointy on the front, of course, and on the other side, it's going to have jagged edges. It's going to be like what do they call it, a serrated knife. So I can, on the way up, I kind of do one of these numbers out of their back, scrape up a few dollars, right? That's what this is. The next schmuck that walks into my office or my business, I've got to get every ounce of money out of that poor sap's pocket as I can. And you know what he's going to do when he leaves you? He goes to his job, or whatever, he's got to get the most money extracted out of the next poor sap that walks into his office. And that's kind of what we've become these days. Massive, most extraction possible. Done. Drill, baby, drill, right? Drill, baby, drill into the back of someone's back. So anyways, but final piece here. But of course, no financial bubble is going to last forever. They all burst eventually. And now the biggest one in U.S. history is about to end in spectacular fashion. Trump will get the blame for a lot of this since he is the current occupant of the White House. But the truth is that the conditions for the next crisis have been building up for many years, and the horrors that the U.S. economy is headed for were entirely predictable. Just as predictable as a train falling off a cliff where there used to be a bridge, and the bridge has been destroyed, and you've seen it destroyed way in advance of the train even getting there, like hours in advance of the train getting there, knowing if a train happens to come, it's going to fall off this cliff. Blatantly punch you in the face, obvious. Unless you turn on the news. Nope, tracks are in tip-top shape. The Federal Reserve just checked those tracks over that little gorge the other day. It's fine. And then it's not, and the train goes off the cliff, right? Same thing. But again, government and finance, it's all about confidence. And funny enough, Martin Armstrong's economic confidence model, as he calls this thing, ECM, his economic confidence model, it's all about confidence. And he said, I think it was this year, or is it next? It's either this year or next year, or maybe it's both. It starts this year, goes next year. I think it's this year, the end of government, confidence in government. And if end of confidence in government comes, the end in confidence of everything that's intertwined in government, finance, money, U.S. dollar, everything, stock market, it's all intertwined. It's a confidence game. So, anyways, final video. Take care.